The Jamaican economy recently got glowing reviews in the Financial Times for its performance over the last 10 years. Economist Keenan Falconer joins us now to break it all down. How are you, Keenan?
I'm well, guys.
Morning, sir.
Morning, everyone.
You good?
Yeah, man, I'm good. You?
Can't complain.
Yeah, we're good. So we got this amazing review in the Financial Times recently, as I said in the introduction. Your take on the article, how accurate is it, and are you feeling what's being shared there?
Well, it's definitely accurate, and it's about the fourth time that the Financial Times has actually written on Jamaica's economy. I think definitely over the last decade, over the last dozen years, the performance macroeconomically has been robust. And you find that, as the article mentioned, this confluence of events has never happened in Jamaican history, and that's why it is so important to talk about. You know, the economy has sort of undergone a period of domestic structural adjustment in that decade. You know, revenues are, they're robust. Our external position is very strong. Inflation has been brought down and anchored to within a specific range. And all of these variables, which end up eventually translating to things that can trickle down to the population.
As well as our debt management. We can't leave that out, right?
Is, critically important. By the end of this fiscal year, it should be 68%. You're coming down from 147%. It has been halved in 10 years. That kind of performance you don't really see anywhere else in the world.
Right. Yeah. And when you speak to that, just for persons who may not necessarily understand, we're talking about the debt to GDP ratio, having come down from 140+%
right,
to where we are now in the upper 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that has been mostly because we are able to increase our revenues and constrain our expenditure. For a very long time, revenues had to be, they had to be increased, especially in the initial parts of this program from 2012, 2013, thereabout, and expenses having come down. That now gave us more space to accelerate debt repayment in that time. And with that acceleration in debt repayment, you find that the monies that we would have spent on interest costs are now freed up for other social services, health, education, transport,
security.
National security, and so on. So that is what really has accrued to us as a nation, the kind of benefits that we're experiencing.
Yep. The article written by the editor of the Financial Times, and I want to quote something that he said, arguably one of the most remarkable and radical but underappreciated turnaround stories in economic history. Now, obviously, you didn't write it, but why would he use the word radical? What's radical about what we were doing or are doing?
Well, specific to our history, we underwent 50 years of having to grapple with these economic issues when inflation and unemployment were not where we wanted it to be. Our external position was not strong. And given the time that it has taken a decade. Persons in living room, I was just leaving high school at the time, and I can remember every time the budget comes around, you have to be worrying about where is the money going to come from, and it was always a feeling of dread. Now, when the budget is being read, there is some optimism to look forward to. And just to contextualize all of that, back then, maybe say 8-10 years ago, our revenues as a percentage going strictly to interest payments on debt would have been about 50%. And now it is less than 15%. And all of that additional money is now being spent on other areas, especially infrastructural development. You look at capital expenditure, for example, was around 25 billion back in 2015, 2016. Now it's over 75 billion. That has trebled in the last 10 years. So you have money dedicated more towards social spending, physical infrastructure, and so on. And the effects are being felt currently, and they will continue to be felt in the next decade, where it's really setting up the next generation.
Yep. Nothing is all good. Which areas, in your opinion, we still need to boost?
Oh, it's definitely growth. And the IMF themselves have noted that growth remains low, around about the region of 1% to 2%. And that's more because of the structural issues that the economy is faced with, meaning...
Explain that.
Yeah, so those structural issues are so long-standing. Crime, you talk about corruption, you talk about the high cost of energy, you talk about inefficient infrastructure in terms of transport, and so on. Those seemingly intractable issues that have persisted for so long, right, that continue to inhibit growth. You know, you're talking about the levels of education of the population to contribute to productivity and increasing the skills of the workforce. Those are the things that have kind of been holding us back a little. And so once we're able to address those, you know, you'll see growth starting to expand. And to even contextualize it further, when we got independence, growth back then, in the 62 years since that time, it has only doubled. You know, if we want to get to where we need to go, then that has to really go 20, 50, 100 times what it should have been back in those days.
Yeah. When people talk about a good economy, you hear people say, oh, the economy is good, oh, the economy is bad, and it's so gray. What constitutes a good economy, and is Jamaica's economy good?
Well, Jamaica's macroeconomy can definitely be described as robust. You know, there's a saying that goes, there are really no good indicators, just ideal ones. So, you know, each indicator that we see, unemployment, inflation, measures something by itself. And, you know, if it trends in a certain direction, it can be considered good. But the overall picture for Jamaica, certainly in terms of macroeconomic stability, fiscal consolidation, is very good. That can't be denied. Of course, at the microeconomic level, you know, persons might not feel it in their pockets. They say, how is it going to benefit me? And as I said, the gains are really macroeconomic in nature. Persons are seeing a lot of roads being built. They're seeing bridges being built, a lot of infrastructure going up, more spending on health and education and security. But they won't immediately feel it because there's a bit of a time horizon between all of these reforms now and the effects to be felt later.
No, and that's my very next question, because you rightly asked, you know, people will say, hey, what's in it for me? How does all of this amazing macroeconomic stability and all the things that come along with it, those good indicators, filter down to the man in the street? You mentioned that it may take a while, but what we're talking about, what's a timeline like?
Yeah, I mean, well, when you look at, for example, think about inflation. The article spoke about anchoring inflation and bringing it down to that 4 to 6%. You think about keeping inflation stable, low and predictable has enabled, for example, expectations around it to be modest, and so price increases you don't find are as accepting the period during the height of COVID. Price increases are not as sharp as they used to be, and that is particularly good for persons who are on fixed incomes, for example. You look at the exchange rate has been not as been volatile as it has been in the past. You had the exchange rate jumping by about 300%. Now it has been in a band of around 4 to 6%, and that enables predictability for, you know, persons in business and suppliers and so on. And those are the little examples of how this economic effort has really is starting to benefit persons. And as I said, persons now might not immediately feel it. We have been around for so long, but it's about the prerequisites setting up the next generation to say that, you know, come 50 years down the line, we don't have to have these conversations about low growth and low unemployment and why is it that the Jamaican economy is not doing well. So now that we have turned the corner a dozen years ago, we should now continue in the same direction.
A lot of public sector workers still complain that they don't get what they're supposed to get and they must strike, all kinds of stuff. I say that to say what we're talking about now, can this be sustained over a period of time, or do you see it bouncing up and down, or have we leveled off?
Now, I think it can be sustained, and evidence of that is really in the fact that COVID, we have managed to bounce back so well compared to the last shock of the global financial crisis 15 years ago. Our buffers were not in place, whether fiscally or on the monetary side. But now, the fact that we were able to recover within 2.5 years, it shows that there's something deep and underlying, I think, undergirded by our financial fiscal responsibility framework, the independence of the central bank to pursue their monetary policy. These are institutions, and so it's not just a fly-by-night thing. You know, the Independent Fiscal Commission coming up, the Fiscal Research Institute. So we have now entrenched this macroeconomic stability, and because of that entrenchment, you know, we are obligated by law. You know, politicians just can't get up and spend money however they feel like it and run with it. Now we are entrenched by law to actually pursue these gains and to continue these gains for the benefit of the Jamaican people.
All right. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks.
All the very best to you and your family for 2024.
That's Economist Keenan Falconer.
All right, folks, when we come back, the Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness will tell you why you should get an annual checkup. There he is. Well, that's not the Minister of Health and Wellness. That's Dr. Davidson.
There's the minister.
There's the minister. We'll soon come.